Consent. It's a simple word that's causing a lot of fuss. You'd think understanding its meaning, particularly when it comes to sex, would be clear, yes or no. But it isn't. A few days ago, even the federal government got into a muddle trying to educate young Australians about consent. Multi-million-dollar videos it released were ridiculed for being obscure and clumsy. So if the government can't get it right, what hope is there for already confused teenagers as they tiptoe their way through one of the most complicated parts of growing up?
What are you wearing tonight?
It's pretty, but I feel like it's a bit too much.
No, it's cute. Where did you get it?
When you're a teenager,
So we like dressing up and take cute photos and things like that.
Ready, 3, 2, 1. We love seeing the sunset. Like, that's absolutely our favourite thing.
Yay!
at 18, many of us thought we knew it all. But this group is not afraid to admit they don't. They want to know more about consent.
Consent is a very big thing, and like what it actually means, and like if you don't give consent, like what like the consequences are afterwards for yourself and other people like around you.
Were you ever taught about consent at school?
No. Like when I was younger, in year 6, you get like these sex ed conversations where you like, you know, the condoms and stuff. But I only got taught about like contraception, but I never got told like the knowledge of consent and like what it means.
Is consent black and white?
It can be, just some people don't understand it.
When Chanel Contos was a schoolgirl, she was just as confused about consent.
1, 2, 3.
But at 23, from the other side of the world, she has now become the poster girl for a revolution.
So consent is agreeing to something, right? And saying, yes, I'm okay with this. We need to change it from no means no to only yes means yes. We need enthusiastic consent to be the norm.
Chanel is determined to expose what she calls a rape culture, where sex crimes are committed without the perpetrator or the victim even realising it.
It's not just educating school students, it is literally tipping Australia upside down and trying to awaken everyone to the realisation that we live in a rape culture and that what we're doing right now is not good enough. Yeah, I feel like our friendship's so unique because we're such different people now to who we were when we were younger.
At the heart of Chanel's mission is a harrowing story about her friend Carola Dixon. Their friendship began at high school in Sydney's eastern suburbs.
I definitely miss just every single weekend, back-to-back sleepovers, like school holidays.
It's continued in London, where they both now work and study. Neither of them can forget what happened to Carola at just 15 years old.
I wish I could go back to my younger self and tell myself that it was all going to get better.
Yeah.
I had been invited to a party with my friends, and this boy was there, and he was encouraging me a lot to drink throughout the night. And ultimately, it ended up in me drinking too much, and I fell unconscious. And at which point, he took me into a room and proceeded to rape me. And my 2 best friends, one of whom was Chanel, came in and saw him raping me.
We walk into a bedroom and what I saw was a boy that, you know, I knew and trusted, zipping up his pants. And Carola was completely unconscious, completely limp.
Chanel believes no one in that room, not even the young boy, understood he was breaking the law.
everyone from the party kind of ran into the room to see what the commotion was. And one of the girls actually called us cockblocks, for stopping the boy from his sexual assault experience. And then me and Carola and our 3 friends we were with got booed out of the party. Not a single one of us knew that was sexual assault when we were that age. And if we don't educate young people on what sexual assault is, obviously they don't know they're sexually assaulting someone. And there's our problem.
So you didn't recognise it as sexual assault?
I thought that being raped meant that, somebody comes and forces you to do this thing and afterwards you're sort of bleeding and you're covered in bruises and you have to call the police and it's in a dark alleyway. I didn't know that rape could happen to me in an environment with someone that I knew, and I didn't know that if I was unable to give my consent, that meant that I had been raped. I thought that if I had to be screaming and crying, say, no, stop.
Carola's story is shocking, but Chanel says what's even worse is that it's not uncommon.
And it's so strange to see how literally nothing's changed.
She was also sexually assaulted by a boy she knew at just 13, and only recently realised other girls had similar traumatic experiences.
I was at a sleepover with 4 of my close friends, and we just started sharing our own stories and stories of our mutual friends of sexual assault, and just realised that we had endless ones, basically. And in this same conversation, I found out that the perpetrator who sexually assaulted me had also sexually assaulted a friend of mine a year later, and that was really, really jarring to me and made me want to do something about it.
A decade on, Chanel is desperate for teenagers to understand and respect consent. She wants society to shift its thinking about it too.
I guess I just want to shake my 13-year-old self and kind of tell her all these things, and that's what I'm trying to do for the whole of Australia. I'm trying to tell 13-year-old girls and boys these things to stop it from happening to them, because experimenting in your teen years is fun. We just need to make it so it is safe.
Not even Chanel realised how volatile this issue is until she put a call out to her friends on social media. Before she knew it, there were dozens of responses, prompting her to launch her own website, petitioning schools to improve consent education. With almost 40,000 signatures and thousands of testimonies from survivors, it's made Chanel's voice louder than she ever imagined it could be.
Hi Stacey, how are you?
Good, Chanel. How are you? Good to see you.
One of the people listening is Stacey Maloney, the commander of the Child Abuse and Sex Crimes Squad for New South Wales Police.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic to see, obviously, looking at the number of reports that Chanel has on her website and the testimonies that we've all read, for some of those victims to utilise the options that we've put out there.
She set up Operation Vest, allowing victims to share their stories with police without instigating a criminal investigation.
Happy to see them come into the local police stations and police districts to speak to police around what's happened to them.
It's a unique strategy which could also help police identify repeat offenders. The reaction was overwhelming.
From Feb to now, it's 54% increase in reporting across the board in New South Wales, which is massive.
Oh, that is so cool.
Massive. So I think that's been beneficial in terms of, your online petition, having these conversations, because I don't think that we've seen reporting like this in terms of an increase, which is pretty amazing.
It's those incredible results which motivate Chanel to keep going.
Keep up the good work. You're doing a good thing. We make a good team.
I think so too. Honestly, from starting this petition, where I've gotten to now and where Australia's gotten to now as a collective is more than I could have ever asked for. But now that I know what we can do, I'm asking for a lot more.
The question is, who is willing to listen?
It's about all of us hand in hand walking this road together.
It was a proud moment at the start of the year when Mason Black became the school captain of the prestigious Brisbane Boys College.
My message would be to stand with the girls. Understand consent. Listen, respect what they're saying.
It's not the badge itself that inspires him, but the opportunity to advocate for a cause close to his heart, the issue of consent.
Boys, this speech today is different.
This passionate speech at his school assembly was so powerful, it went viral.
It is the hardest one I've ever had to write. Not because it is difficult, but because it is heartbreaking.
More than 500,000 people watched it online, and it made headlines around the country.
This is not solely an issue of protecting women, but an issue of educating men. Stop being boys, be human.
Mason's rage about consent is deeply personal.
What you really need is a basic acceptance and respect, and that, boys, is on all of us.
And why were you so nervous about this particular speech?
Because I wrote it for Mum.
Last year, Mason learned a horrible truth about his mum, Michelle. She was sexually abused when she was young.
When I found out about Mum, it's heartbreaking, and that conversation's the worst conversation to ever have. It's terrible to think about, really, that my mum was put in that position.
Are you brave enough to ask your mum about her experiences? What about your sisters? Friends?
It never leaves you. It never leaves you. It just, but you have to. I wish I was able to talk about it then. Not 40 years later. Finding the right time to tell your son about that. So we just kind of sat on the bed and I cried and he held me. And I just opened up about what happened. Your son becomes your greatest protector. And if my son can become a protector for his friends around him, whew, then, you know, that's my greatest inspiration then.
To Mum, I hope sharing your story helps boys understand how close this issue really is to home. Love you always, Mason.
I think that's when I broke down. When he said those 4 words, I love you, Mum. And that's what happened. Took that deep breath and went, my baby's a man. And he's never, ever going to stop saying, I love you, Mum. Never. If more boys could tell their mums they love them, it'd be a better world.
And your mum says that you've given her a voice after all these years.
Yeah, it's
pretty special, Mason.
Yeah, I'm just grateful, really, for the opportunity. You know, it was good. It was good to see that look in Mum's eyes, where she was proud. She's proud that conversation is starting to happen. But yeah, and I think that a lot of parents around our country are going to be really proud when their boys speak up and when their young girls speak up as well.
How did it feel giving that talk to the boys, particularly given it was a big assembly as it was? What were you thinking?
Oh, it was pretty tough. You know,
His headmaster, Damon Emtage, had never seen the student body so captivated by their captain.
That had intensity. You could actually feel it, the silence and the intent with which they were listening to you.
If a woman wants to say no.
You know, when you look around, the whole auditorium was silent. And I think that that's never happened before. they've never listened so intently. And yeah, it was really amazing.
What does that tell you?
That boys are ready to listen.
Me and James are in the same ward polo team.
Mason's peers are ready to talk too. His friend James says the problem is so pervasive, it's entrenched in their language.
People will just be talking about something really trivial, such as the footy game on the weekend, and they'll ask, oh, what was the scoreline? How'd you guys go? And it's, oh, we raped them, bro.
What do you do about it when you hear it?
Previously, I will admit freely that I was just like, I would understand it and hear it and not be okay with it, but I wouldn't do anything about it purely because I didn't feel I had the power or they would actually listen. But I think now that everyone's actually talking about it, when someone calls you out, you actually listen now.
Their friend Dana worries that not all boys are like James. Her biggest fear is what might happen if she says no and is ignored.
It's about getting out of it. Like, you can say no or something like that, but that doesn't mean you're going to get out of the situation or you're less vulnerable or anything like that. It's not about teaching people to listen to people. It is, but it's also about teaching people how to get out of it.
Down in Sydney, Amy knows what it's like to be taken advantage of.
I could have said no, but it's more so like I kind of froze up a bit and I was like a bit shocked because like I consider myself a very strong person and I would like not like, you know, I would definitely say no, but at that stage I found like myself being very weak because I didn't.
Trying to understand boys' intentions is so daunting for TT, she feels dating is just not worth the risk.
If I'm talking to a guy or something and I'm just being nice and they take that as an opportunity to like push it further and it's confusing that I don't want to feel like violated just because I'm speaking to you. That's why I don't get into relationships and that's why I don't do any of that because it's like too much to handle.
These teens are determined to prevent more horror stories, like the ones they've read on Chanel Contos's website. Chanel has collected thousands of testimonies about disturbing sexual abuse, mostly perpetrated by young men from elite institutions.
It could happen to one of us or it could happen to a loved one or another friend.
Mason and his friends, who all attend private schools, have read them too.
I think everyone's willingness to talk about it has definitely made a difference in...
Is this just a private school issue or is it more widespread?
It's everywhere. It really is. It's in schools, it's in the workplace, it's everywhere. It's, you know...
It's in Parliament, right?
It's in Parliament, yeah. It's terrible that it is, but it is. And we all need to acknowledge that.
How much have you learnt at school about safe relationships?
I'm lucky here at school because we've had programs that have been in place. But honestly, I can say that from every school, it's not enough.
Last week, the federal government committed to doing more, launching a website to help schools teach students about consent. But it's far from perfect. Already, 2 videos have been taken down because the messaging was confusing. It begs the question, just how hard is it to get this right? Even if the content is improved, the lessons are not compulsory. So what might be delivered in one classroom could be overlooked in the next.
There is an inconsistent approach. We have some guidance in the national curriculum, but lots of schools within jurisdictions are vested with a significant amount of autonomy in terms of how they deliver it.
Lawyer Katrina Marson has studied the best consent education programs in the world, which unfortunately are not in Australia. How do we start to fix the problem?
I think we need to take a strategic approach. We can't just fix the curriculum and add in consent, for example, a couple of extra lessons on consent and say, job done. It's much more than that.
As a prosecutor in Canberra's Sexual Offences Unit, Katrina Marson spends a lot of time talking about consent. She has the difficult job of proving perpetrators have broken the law. But even when she's successful, She says there are no winners. By the time a case reaches court, so much damage has already been done.
The trauma can be lifelong. The criminal justice system is reactive by nature. It only steps in once an individual harm has occurred, and of course it only steps in for some. It's high time that we stop relying solely on the criminal justice system to do all the work when its reach only extends so far.
Can we rely on the justice system?
For prevention? No. The process of prevention doesn't start in the courtroom. It starts in the classroom or at the kitchen table. I am hopeful that we will get some more interest from the primary school space.
Katrina understands what it takes to tackle an issue as complex as this.
What they're trying to do is incorporate a bit more prevention into it.
Armed with a grant from the Churchill Trust, she stepped out of the courtroom in 2018, travelling to Europe and North America to research how education can protect young people from sexual harm.
And what we see in these other countries is that it's a real priority for the schools, for the communities and for the kids. They love it. One of the other things I saw over there was a recognition of this as a specialist subject matter. It can't just be Bob from geography because he's got a spare period. There are experts out there who know how to design and deliver really quality relationships and sexuality education that does what it's intended to do.
Which country does it best?
The Netherlands do it particularly well. They see it as quite important that it's the classroom teacher who delivers relationships and sexuality education once they've been trained to do so, because it's important for young people to see the everyday adults in their lives talking about these issues.
I learned what sex was. It was kind of uncomfortable, but it comes kind of handy. Like, if you want a kid, you know how to do it.
In the Dutch town of Os, this school is in the middle of a program aptly named Spring Fever. It's 1 week of the year when every day includes a lesson about sexuality and relationships.
Today, we're going to learn how to say no.
Spring Fever is the brainchild of Elspeth Reitzimmer, a researcher at a non-government organisation called Rutgers. Her program is so successful, it's now used in thousands of schools across Europe.
Your body is your body.
Elspeth says the secret is starting early, at just 4 years of age.
That sounds very young.
Yeah, you start there because it's an example about we're teaching our children that we have to greet our grandfather and grandmother in the Netherlands to give them a kiss. If a child says, I don't want to, then we say, we respect your boundaries. So we teach them to say no if they don't want something, and that it will be respected.
What evidence do you have that your approach works?
We have research that when you teach young children about relationships and sexuality, they are better in saying no and what they want. And we see that in the Netherlands we have a very low figures about STIs, about teenage pregnancies, and our average age, or the age that half of the young people have intercourse, is 18. So it's very high age.
Chanel Contos has become the voice of a generation determined to improve consent education in Australia. She has tens of thousands of supporters online and in places that really count. It's a direction she never expected her life to take when she moved to London to start university last year.
Literally, like 2 months ago, I was just like a chilling uni student who used to like sleep till 1 p.m. and now it's like 16-hour days every single day. Either speaking to media, establishing a non-for-profit, speaking to members of parliament. So much admin, so much admin. But I've had a lot of support as well.
Chanel knows thousands of people are already behind her. But to create lasting change, she needs us all to come on board.
I think anyone that denies that they've contributed to rape culture, that's me included, that's girls included, parents, teachers included, men and boys included, they're part of the problem. So we're at a point in society where we get to choose to continue what's been happening, or where we can choose to actively dispute the cultural norms. And that's what I'm asking people to do. That's what I'm begging people to do.
If this story has raised issues, there is support and counselling available by calling 1-800-RESPECT, which is 1-800-737-732. Hello, I'm Sarah Abo. Thanks for watching 60 Minutes Australia. Subscribe to our channel now for brand new stories and exclusive clips every week. And don't miss out on our Extra Minutes segments and full episodes of 60 Minutes on 9now.com.au and the 9Now app.